of his financial habits and how he ended up broke. And I thought that was really fascinating because because a lot of times, when somebody's struggling financially, we tend to feel sorry for them. I remember Redd Foxx being anybody. Did anybody happen to see that episode of Arsenio where Redd Foxx was on there and he was begging Eddie Murphy to help him out with his financial problems, and he got on his knees and he said, "Eddie, please, please, Eddie, please." Um, and I remember watching that, and I was probably maybe 20 years old, and I felt very bad for him. I remember kind of feeling like yeah, Eddie Murphy's rich. Eddie Murphy should help him. And I think a lot of us feel that way. A lot of us feel that when a grown man has a problem like that, that we're supposed to that their wealthy friends or successful friends are supposed to help them, and if they don't help them, then that person, was a sellout and they weren't there for their friends, things like that. Like I saw someone mention the rapper DMX, and when he was sort of dying from his drug addictions, and people were asking, well, where was Jay-Z when DMX was struggling? Why didn't Jay-Z check on DMX? And one thing that's interesting to me is I'm willing to bet you that Jay-Z did try to check on DMX. I bet a lot of people try to check on DMX. I mean, when you're famous, especially when you're famous and you can make money for people, lots of people will check on you, because they want you to be well, because they know how much money you can make for them when you're at your best, right? Like a great athlete. If you watched America's Team, the documentary about the Dallas Cowboys, Charles Haley, who was this great defensive player, he had clear bipolar disorder, and he would just do crazy stuff. He threw a helmet at the team owner, and the helmet went through the wall, and then he punched out a trainer. And they kept checking on him. They kept making sure, they kept saying, "Hey, you okay, Charles? Why don't you come back to practice?" Everybody makes mistakes, right? And of course, that was because he was an economic entity. He was a guy that was going to make money for them. So that's why they were so concerned about him. And so I assume the same thing was true with DMX. Maybe Jay-Z didn't do it, but I'm sure somebody else did. I'm sure somebody was out there saying, "Hey, man, if you blow this, you're blowing a great opportunity." My wife wanted to check in on Kanye West when he called me and we talked on the phone. She wanted to talk to him as a therapist. He refused help. He didn't want to talk to anybody. He didn't want to get the help he needed. So my point is to say that Demond Wilson, and I'm going to share a clip in a second of him talking about Redd Foxx. Demond Wilson seemed to imply that when Redd Foxx was having his financial problems, that lots of people were trying to help him and he wasn't listening to anybody, and that the people around him were not challenging him. They were not people and again, you choose what people you want to have around. When Richard Pryor was smoking himself to death with all the crack and the cocaine, there were people that wanted to help him. Jim Brown, was pretty much trying to force him to get off drugs. And and Richard just didn't want the help, right? So the point is to say that all of us, and tell me if you're in this category, a lot of us have that relative who says they need help, but they won't take anybody's help. Right? Does anybody go through that where you got a relative where you're like, I know exactly what your problem is, I know exactly how to help you, but they don't want your help at all. Or at least they want you to help them in the way they want to be helped. Like, I want you to loan me money. I want you to bail me out. I want you to, help me get through this situation I created for myself. But they don't really want no real help. You know what I mean? They don't want you to invest in them. They want you to drain yourself by paying the massive cost that comes with being irresponsible. There's a big cost that comes with being an addict. There's a cost that comes with being unaccountable to your own life. So I'm gonna share this clip with Demond Wilson because I thought it was really profound in terms of hearing the interview. He's a real dude. He's got a lot to say, and it's interesting, and it makes me think about a lot of what we're all struggling with when it comes to our own families and trying to get people on track, whether it's to build wealth or whatever the case may be. And before I do that, I want to remind everybody, if you want to join the 5-year pledge, where basically I'm saying that for 5 years we just pay a bill to ourselves, stop paying just the car note, stop paying just the cell phone bill, and just paying the landlord. I want you to pay a bill to yourself, and so instead of making the landlord rich, you'll be making your family rich. Put that money in the S&P 500. And if you want to join the pledge, just text that word pledge to the phone number 87948. You can text pledge to 87948. You can also go to 5yearpledge.com, and you can also sign up there if you live in another country. So here's Demond Wilson. And here is this is on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. And I'd like to have conversations like this online because I think that they're relevant to the Black community and will help us to do better financially and otherwise. So here goes.
And Redd was also seeing a lot of money at the time. Now, upon our research, Redd would end up passing away a man that owed the IRS, like he had financial troubles. Did it hurt you to know that he kind of went out that way, being the legend that he was?
First of all, I don't have empathy for people that do things to themselves. The statistics, if an oppressor, if the world kicks you in the head, that's one thing. But when you don't do what you're supposed to do, I have no sympathy or empathy for you at all. Redd would file every year. I just paid my corporate tax. I paid corporate tax, personal tax, property tax every year. Redd would file, but he never, ever paid. And they called him down to the IRS offices, and he performed, and not in a nice, kind way. And then the trucks pulled up, and they took everything. So why would I feel anything for that? That was his fault. He did that to himself.
And Redd was also seeing a lot of money at the time. Now,
Okay, did everybody hear that? Give me a yes if you heard that, if that came through okay. All right. And all right, let me see here. Okay. Okay. Perfect. All right, awesome. All right. And by the way, I know some of you got the email where the emails I sent out with the 5-year pledge. If you did not get the email, then just text the word pledge to the number 87948, and you'll get a text message right back that'll have a link to some resources that'll help you. So if that first method didn't work, then try that second method. Just text that number. All right. So here's what is interesting to me. People don't really like accountability that much. And I think that this is a little bit of a politicized statement in the sense that there's something about being a victim that can be quite disabling for some of us, right? Like if I say, well, I'm a Black man and I'm a victim, that might be true, but what can also happen is that I can also victimize myself, right? So I give myself a little handicap sticker and I slap it on my chest. And so every time you hold me accountable, I say, but I'm a victim. I can't be accountable. I'm a victim. Of course I can't learn how to read. I'm a victim. Of course I didn't get up to go to work that day. I'm a victim of, that's why I sit around and smoke weed all day in my drawers in my mama's basement and play PlayStation until 2 o'clock in the morning, because I'm a victim, right? And I don't know if victimhood necessarily helps us the way that it should. It doesn't mean that we aren't victims. I mean, being a victim pretty much means somebody did something to you that shouldn't have happened. That wasn't right, right? So to that extent, we can define ourselves as victims of something, but there has to be a transition process. There has to be something, and I know people gave Bill Cosby a lot of flack for his book, From Victims to Victors, but I truly believe that in his own awkward way, Bill Cosby was actually trying to help Black folks by helping us realize how great we are. And I only say that because I know society talks about the bad things Bill might have done behind closed doors, but there's a lot of good things that he did out in the open. Like he made massive donations to HBCUs before anybody else ever did. If you watch old Fat Albert cartoons, Bill Cosby used that massive platform to educate Black children and give them self-esteem. I was one of those kids. If you saw some of the work that he did, he did research on us to help us become what we're supposed to be. When he did the Cosby Show, it was a masterful display of all forms of Black excellence and Black enlightenment and positivity, and he single-handedly elevated the enrollments of HBCUs by taking that primetime NBC slot and using it to promote HBCUs. Do y'all remember that? Was anybody else affected by that? Does anybody else agree with that? This man, when we talk about culture, I always talk all the time about how the music industry and entertainment industry kind of deflated Black culture. Well, they poisoned Black culture. They peed in our lemonade and we drank it. We drank every drop of it. And he did the opposite. He actually elevated Black culture. If you go back, I want anybody who's too young to remember, go back and look at some of the content that he was putting on NBC primetime. Millions of people were watching, and he was telling Black kids to get an education. He was telling Black kids to have good families. Now, what he was doing in his private life, clearly that, there was some disturbing things going on with him and with women. But I think if you're going to really look at his legacy in its entirety and with complete honesty, I think that you have to consider everything that Bill Cosby represented, good and bad. And with that being said, his book From Victims to Victors, I don't think that was a book that book was, it was defined as sort of him being this elitist guy who wasn't in touch with what people were going through. And I didn't see it that way. I saw it as him saying, you're special, we're supposed to be extraordinary, we're supposed to be great. What's wrong with us telling ourselves that we're supposed to be great? You know, I'm not meant to be the white man's sycophant. I'm not meant to be his little bitch. I'm not supposed to be his slave. I'm not supposed to be his little sidekick. I'm supposed to be a leader. I'm supposed to stand up and be strong. I'm supposed to read the books. I'm supposed to learn things the way he learns things, right? And so sometimes self-esteem plays a big part in how we even view ourselves. And so even financially, when I lay out the 5-year pledge, or when I laid out Project 2070, which we're in year 12 of that, I told you in 2013, Project 2070 was basically a formula I put together. Remember, I'm a financial scientist. I have a whole doctorate in this. I said, if I can get 1% of the Black community to listen to me on this, I don't need 10%. I don't need 100%. I ain't gonna get 100%. If I get 1% of Black people to listen to me on some key ideas when it comes to economics, by the year 2070, we will have a segment of the Black community that will be seen with as much power as the Jewish community has when it comes to wealth, because wealth is a cumulative process. It's a matter of deciding which part of this society you want to be positioned in. Do you want to be in the power position, or do you want to be in the victim position? You have to make a decision. So with that said, that whole plan was really built on a belief in Black exceptionalism. It was built on this understanding that, hey, we can be better than what we are. We can do better than what we do. We can take ourselves to the next level if we want to. And ain't nothing elitist about that. There's nothing arrogant about that. There's nothing inappropriate about that. The only thing that's inappropriate about it is that people want you to know your place. People want you to think that being Black means you're supposed to behave a certain way. And they put that in the media and they say, well, you know, you don't smoke weed, well, you ain't really a Black man, or you don't speak a certain way, you ain't really Black. If you don't, if you got, if you ain't got babies, mamas, and all this other stuff, you ain't really Black. And I kind of think that this is the kind of stuff that makes it challenging when it comes to the whole wealth experience for Black people. But literally, Project 2070, I wrote about it in my book. It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, and I did a whole tour around it in 2013. The Minister Farrakhan joined me in Chicago. Cornel West joined me in New York, in Brooklyn. That's why we're going back to Brooklyn for the All Black National Convention, because I've done 2 events in Brooklyn. Each time it was packed. You guys came out, and I love Brooklyn. And if you haven't been to Brooklyn, you got to come. They have some of the smartest Black people in the country, and they're also courageous. In the South, you got smart folks, but sometimes they're a little nervous and scared. They don't want to make white folks nervous or upset white folks. But in Brooklyn, they don't care. They're assertive, intelligent, and capable. And I think that that's really one of the pockets of solid Blackness that you have in this country. Now, with that said, let's talk about this whole accountability thing. So what Damon Wilson was saying, I'm gonna play this clip one more time because I want us to really analyze this. And I want you to apply this to someone in your family in terms of how you view accountability as it pertains to wealth accumulation, just how your family views it, how you're trained to even look at it. I personally argue that we're not even trained to look at ourselves as people that can be accountable for our condition. I think that we are trained to believe that we are products of our environment. That's what we're trained to believe. I'm a product of my environment. Da, 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 da. I think your environment should be a product of you. I think that your environment can be a product of you, but it all comes down to energy. It's sort of like if you have the solar system, all the planets revolve around the sun, and it's because the sun, it has the most energy. The sun is not revolved around any of the planets. The sun is literally just sitting there, and it's just shining. It's just doing its thing. And all the planets just revolve around the sun because the gravitational pull of the sun is so strong. All the planets have a gravitational pull, but the sun's gravity is the strongest. That's why everything in the solar system revolves around the sun. And so the difference between the sun and the planets pretty much comes down to energy, maybe size and energy, right? Or the size of the energy, if you want to call it that. So I would almost say that if you want your environment to be a product of you, then you build up your energy, right? The sun is not product of its environment. The sun doesn't say, well, the reason I went left is because Pluto told me to, or or I had to wiggle because Neptune, Neptune and Jupiter are so powerful that they made me do it. No, the sun don't say nothing. The sun doesn't even worry about what Neptune and Pluto and Jupiter are doing. Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto are responding to the sun because there's a difference in energy. So I think that when you go into your space with your family or with your friends or with anything, you can make a decision. What's my energy going to be? Am I going to bring the energy and the confidence such that my environment becomes a product of me? Or am I just going to sit and shrink myself down and be afraid and let myself just be a product of the environment? Right. So ultimately, this is how I view a lot of these things. And I really think that Black people are taught to shrink. I really think that we're taught to shrink. And what are examples of this? Well, when you have the little kid in school who is doing well and making good grades, and somebody makes a joke about him and says, "You're acting white," what does that kid do? What do they do to try to fit in? Well, they'll try to be dumb. They'll try to be a thug. They'll try to be, ignorant, right? Because they feel like ignorance is cool, right? That's what makes the girls like him and whatever, right? Well, if you have a little girl who's really good at math and science, and the other girls make fun of her because she knows biology better than she knows makeup, or she knows math better than she knows Cardi B lyrics, and the other girls make fun of her, and then the boy that she likes isn't interested in her because he thinks she's too smart. Well, what's she going to do a lot of times? She's going to shrink herself down. She's going to make herself stupid, right? She's going to play dumb, right? So we're taught to shrink at an early age. And then don't even talk about the white man. You get around white folks, you take a 6'5" Negro and he'll become 5'6". He turns into Kevin Hart overnight because he knows that he has to be Kevin Hart spiritually and psychologically in order for them to feel comfortable with him. And I don't think that that's the best of who we are. I don't think that's the best that we can be. So what I want to do is play this clip with Demond Wilson one more time. And then I want us to analyze this, and I want us to think about this in the context of family and accountability. And because I know a lot of you are going through this struggle. So many of you come up to me at events, the All Black National Convention and stuff like that. And you've told me about your relatives and how do I get my family members to listen? How do I get my cousins to do this and do that? And I would just tell you the short answer is you really can't. But I'll give you some tips. After I show you this clip, I'm gonna give you some tips on how you might want to deal with those individuals in your family that don't want to listen. So I'm gonna play this clip one more time. Let me know if you can hear it. Okay, give me a yes if you can hear it when I play it, and then we're gonna assess it. It's very, very short. Here it goes.
Upon our research, Redd would end up passing away a man that owed the IRS, like he had financial troubles. Did it hurt you to know that he kind of went out that way, being the legend that he was?
First of all, I don't have empathy for people that do things to themselves. The statistics, if the world kicks you in the head, that's one thing. But when you don't do what you're supposed to do, I have no sympathy or empathy for you at all. Redd would file every year. I just paid my corporate tax. I paid corporate tax, personal tax, property tax every year. Redd would file, but he never, ever paid. And they called him down to the IRS offices, and he performed, and not in a nice, kind way. And then the trucks pulled up, and they took everything. So why would I feel anything for that? That was his fault. He did that to himself.
Okay. All right. So y'all heard that, right? All right. So that's interesting, right? In terms of his perspective on it. Now, here's what I would say. Let me give you some tips in terms of dealing with that. And I see this happen just quite a lot, where sometimes we get so deep into this idea that I'm a victim and I can't control my outcomes that you see people that will destroy their own life and then look around and say, well, who did it? Like, who do I blame? And so a few tips on how to kind of deal with that. Number one is when you have people in your family that refuse to get help and refuse to evolve, you've got to build boundaries around that. You have to protect your boundaries. And so, for example, when I have relatives, I'm gonna just tell you to give you a glimpse into my life. I think I've had 7 people ask me for money this week alone. And this is a typical week. There's nothing atypical about this particular week over any other week. So every week I have, more than one person that asks me for money. It's very draining. It's almost traumatic to the point where you don't even like answering your phone because you assume that 70% of the people that call you are asking you for something. And so if you want to know what life looks like from my perspective, it becomes a little lonely because you know that money will automatically make people want to be your friend, and you don't know why they're trying to be your friend, right? But it's life, right? You just accept that, and that's what it is. And so boundaries are really important. So one thing that I might do sometimes, for example, is if you ask me for a certain amount of money, and let's say that you are somebody that's really close to me, I might give you a little bit, but I don't give you more than I can afford to lose. I pretty much in my head, I'm assuming that you're not going to pay me back, and I'm prepared for that. And also I gained over time the ability to say lovingly, this is a situation you created, so you're going to have to solve this yourself. But I do just enough to let you know, hey, I care. I'm here. Because I can't sit around and say I ain't got it. If I say I ain't got it, then that would be a lie. People will know that's a lie, right? I'm not going to pretend like I'm broke, just to try to get away from helping. And so just to sort of explain that lonely term, yeah, I do have a wife and kids. So I'm not, and also remember I'm a loner anyway. So I don't. I can literally sit on a deserted island by myself as long as I got a laptop and Wi-Fi. I could literally sit there for 5 years and be happy. So don't think I'm like sitting here sad or nothing. I'm not drinking myself to sleep at night. But you do when you start to have more resources, you have to be thoughtful about why people are your friends. It's just like being a really pretty girl, and men are super nice to you. You know what I'm talking about, ladies. You know what I'm talking about. You don't know what, like you think that you have a great relationship, and then one day the guy just pulls his penis out or something. You're like, wait, wait, what's going on? I didn't want you to kiss me. Like get away from me, right? So ultimately, it's life, right? And that's fine. The second thing is another example in terms of things you can do is you can lead by example. If you go and you are successful, like you do things that like what we're talking about in this class. I know a lot of you are making more money now. It's great because I get to talk to you like fellow rich people because a lot of you, I've seen your bank accounts. I've seen your Robinhood accounts. Some of you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in there. I'm super happy for you. And it has come through consistent investing. Well, I think leading by example goes a long way. Remember, money is psychological. Money is as psychological as is anything else. Money is power. Money's power, and I love it. I want you to be powerful. Imagine if B1 people, those of us who are in this room, were the most powerful people on the planet. You can't tell me it wouldn't be a better planet. You can't tell me that the Black community wouldn't be better off if everybody came and worked for us and was forced to do the things that we would ask them to do. Right? Imagine if every Black person in America was forced to take one class in the Black business school. Oh, we'd be the most financially literate group of people on the entire freaking planet. We would be, right? But that's life, and it's gonna happen. I told you, Project 2070 is designed to do that, but it takes a while, right? If you give yourself enough time, you can build extraordinary amounts of wealth. Extraordinary amounts of Warren Buffett invested $142, $150 or something like that in 1942. In the year 2030, that $150 is going to be worth $6 million. Right. So imagine if it been 1,500, that's $60 million. If it was 15,000, it'd be 600 million. Right. So money grows, like it becomes this massive thing. Like it grows actually mathematically, money grows like a virus. So you think about how a virus spreads. It starts off very small, and it might just be 3 or 4 people that are infected. But if it's a highly contagious virus, it can eventually get to the point where it's out of control. So think of money the same way. Compound interest is equally powerful. That's why you want to invest consistently so that compound interest can work in your favor. But when you are just paying bills and that's all if you're making money just to pay bills, then what you're doing is you're giving the benefit and the blessing of compound interest to other people. You're letting other people get long-term benefits from your short-term sacrifice. But you're making consistent short-term sacrifices over a long period of time because maybe you don't know how this process works. So you're missing out on the ripple effect of all this wealth that you're creating for other people. So leading by example is really powerful because I don't care who it is. I believe everybody wants what's best for themselves. I really do. I definitely know most people won't like money. That I do know. Right. So in my view, if you're out here doing your thing and just, your cousin says, hey, I'm not interested, I don't want to do that. stuff. I don't like Dr. Boyce because I think he's a Republican or something. Whatever stupid stuff people say. And I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I don't even waste time on that stuff. Then fine. Just say, okay, no problem. And go do your thing. Just make it happen. And I guarantee it's going to take time, but I guarantee you, as you're making it happen, and then they see you, they're following you on Instagram and they start hating because you on vacation when they're at work, or you just got the new Mercedes and they can't afford a Corolla, or you are financially secure and they're not, or your kids are working in the family business and their kids have to struggle to get a job in the age of AI. They're going to start asking you questions. They're going to want to listen to you, right? And if you really want a young person to listen to you, just create a job and invite them to come work for you. Everybody listens to their boss. It's just crazy. But I talked to a young guy who said that his child's mother told him, he asked her, he said, "Why do you respect your boss more than you respect me?" And she said, "Because my boss gives me money," right? Which I think is just ridiculous, but whatever. And I was like, yeah, so what you got to do is go out and be the boss, whatever that looks like for you. Be the boss of something, be the leader of something. Because when you're the boss, then yeah, people are gonna have to listen to you. And as much as we want to act like money is not important and money doesn't matter, there was a saying in the Chris Rock movie where the guy told Chris, he said, "You can lose money chasing women, but you'll never lose women chasing money." So if I'm a young Black man and I'm trying to get control and power and whatever it is that young guys want, then you master money because money is power. And the same thing is true with mothers. You want to influence people. The best way to influence people is when you can feed them when they're hungry, or when you can come through for them when they're struggling. And I'm not saying use it in a manipulative way. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying sometimes me writing a little check helps you focus a little bit. Oh, I got your attention now. Oh, you got the $500. You want to know, there's more where that came from, but you got to pay attention. Next thing you know, they're looking like a crackhead, right? Well, because remember, money isn't just powerful. Money is psychological. Money is a freaking drug. How do you think white people control you so much already? They know these things. Jewish people, they really know it. They learned it from birth. You've seen how AIPAC and the Zionists control the congressmen and everybody else. So I'm not out here trying to tell you how to use that power. I just want you to have it. And then at that point, hopefully you'll use it in a good way. But literally, whatever it is you want to use it for good or evil. It's just like a gun or something. A gun isn't good or bad. Depends on what you do with it, right? All right. So let me move on. Let me jump back in and finish this point up. Also, let me see here. Lawrence Eggleston, the Panther, is doing his swing trading masterclass now. I think they met yesterday for a study hall, and he's going to do another one in a couple of weeks. And so I sent you all the link. I texted all out to you for those who want to join. And I'll text it out again at some point. So if you want to join, you want to learn swing trading from Lawrence, you can. He's a good dude. I think he got recruited to play football for Georgia, but he got an injury and he had something in his brain. He couldn't play football anymore. But he was a really good football player. But he's just a great guy. I like this kid a lot. I love working with him. And also D1 is going to be performing in a few different cities. You guys know we're sponsoring his tour. We're buying 40 tickets for Black business school students, which is all of you. Even if you're not taking a class or whatever, that's okay. This is a Black business school class. So if you're here, you're part of the student body. And so we bought 40 tickets. So if you go to any of D1's concerts, you can just say Dr. Boyce sent you. And if you're in the first 40 people, then they will let you in for free. After 40, if you're number 41, then you got to pay for a ticket. But the first 40 of you can go. I think he did Houston. That was totally sold out. I think Atlanta was next. That'll probably be sold out. And then New York City. I am coming to New York City. I'm not going to be rapping, so you won't hear me rap. But I am going to actually be part of his community forum that he's having in DC in New York City. And I told him I would like to also maybe join him in Dallas. So that's the goal. Dallas is the goal. I don't know for sure. I'm gonna try, but I know New York City, I'm definitely gonna be there for that. And also, in case you want to know what other things we're sponsoring in the community, LeVar Scott, the NASCAR driver, he's a young guy. He's now in the ARCA series and he's doing really well. And we've been sponsoring and supporting him for quite a while. So can tickets be purchased at the door? Yes, Deirdre. I think as long as they're not sold out. So if you want to get just be safe and get your ticket in advance, you can go to d1music.com, DEE, the number one music.com, d1music.com. And the reason D1 is I bring him up is because we have to shift the culture. He's a partner in helping us get that done, and it's working. It's really working. I mean, the whole world is talking about what he's doing, and the whole world's talking about what we're doing. Now everybody's talking about Black wealth. That was not true a decade ago, and I would say that we played a massive part in that. We were doing it when nobody else was doing it, and we're going to be doing it even if everyone else stops. So there we go. So the community's making progress. Now here's another thing you can do if you have a loved one that needs your help but doesn't necessarily know it. You can offer tools and maybe books, courses, or workshops instead of giving them money, right? Or maybe offer those tools as a trade for money, right? You can compensate. You could say, hey, look, I'll give you the $100, but I need you to come to class with me a couple of times or whatever. I need you to learn these flashcards. That's a good one. If you want to get your kids financially literate, remember, you got to do it early. You don't want to wait until your kids are 20 years old before they start learning about investing. Seriously, I mean, and if they are 20, get started right away. But that 5-year-old is there, start the 5-year-old. Like really, everybody thinks that investing is done best. Here's the thing. Here's what most Americans don't even start investing until they're like 40, which is a horrible mistake. That's so bad. It's so because you're losing so much. You have no idea. I'd love to be able to put a clear dollar amount to help you understand how much money you lose when you wait from 20 to 40 and don't invest till you're 40. I know everyone says they can't afford to invest. That's like saying I can't afford to pay bills. Everybody can afford to pay bills because you have to pay bills. The reason you say you can't afford to invest is because you think investing is optional. Financial security is not optional. You being safe should not be optional. You protecting your family should not be optional. You protecting your legacy should not be optional. You putting yourself first, that ain't optional. That ain't everything else should be optional. That should not be optional. So stop telling me people can't afford to invest. That's why I created the $5 a day plan, because it's $5 a day. You can't even buy a McDonald's value meal with that. So when you tell me people can't afford to invest, that's like telling me Black people can't afford chicken. But we know that they can. So a lot of times, my aunt used to say this all the time. My aunt worked at the welfare office in Atlanta, and she became kind of cynical because she kind of saw the worst of the worst. I don't think every person on welfare is milking the system or anything like that at all. My mother used to actually receive public assistance, so there is a necessity for safety nets for sure. But y'all know what it is. Y'all know you got some people where they have, y'all know, we all know, hope we can agree on this and love each other, is we know the welfare mentality can be real, in some households. And it came from, somewhere else, but we know that once it's in there, it becomes like a disease mentally. And so one thing that she used to say is, she said that there would be people that would spend money on what they want and then beg for what they need. Right. So when they want something, they want the new TV, they want the shoes, they want to go to the club or whatever, they'll pay for that. But then when it's time to be responsible and pay for the things they need, like a roof over their head, that's when you get to begging. And so mindset is everything. So ultimately, that's never going to go away. You're always going to have people that view money in a different way. You're going to have people with different levels of discipline. A lot of investing in wealth accumulation really comes down to the ability to delay gratification. Some people just they never developed that. They were never put in an environment where they were forced to be patient or to be disciplined. And so it's never gonna go away. Your opportunity to make money just from the mere fact that some people are very short-sighted, that's always going to be there. So if you want to give yourself and your family just a massive advantage, teach the kids, teach the family to be disciplined and patient and to be able to think long-term. If you can think long-term in a world of short-term thinkers, you will always be the richest man in the room. You'll always be. If you are the one person who can see the big picture when everybody else sees the small picture, you'll be the most powerful person in that space. Why? Well, because when you are able to strategically think long term, you are positioning yourself to have power in spaces that other people haven't even become conscious of yet. How the hell are you going to compete with me when you're not even conscious of the existence of the freaking battlefield? You can't even visualize the battlefield. If I'm competing with you, if it's 2025 and I'm literally making a plan on how I'm going to dominate you in the year 2035, and you ain't even thought past 2025, then I can destroy you if I want to. Checkmate, you son of a bitch. I got you. Seriously. Because I got 10 years of preparation. You're going to start preparing for 2035 in 2034. Start preparing for 2035 in 2025. So I got a 10-year head start. There's no way you can compete or defeat me if I got a 10 years of a head start on you. And so if you look at the people that dominate 2025, financially and otherwise, and you reverse engineer their domination, how did they get here? Then you will find that they were planning for 2025 back in 2015, 2010, 2005. That's what they were doing. They went and they bought 300 Bitcoins just for shits and giggles, just to see if this thing takes off. Now they're sitting on $3 million or $5 million worth of Bitcoin, right? They bought the Apple stock when it was, priced at $20 a share, and now it's 200. Do you understand the difference? That's what investors do. That's what investing looks like. That's why I tell you that investing isn't just an intellectual process. There are people out here that can tell you everything intellectually that you need to do to be a good investor, just like there are people that can tell you everything you need to do to get in shape or to lose weight. But the intellectual side means nothing if you're not connected and committed to the sacrifice required to actually implement all the things that you're learning. The implementation is everything. And the implementation is a little hard for some of us because we're so used to being driven by inspiration, these motivational speakers, charismatic speakers who bring us into the church and get us singing, screaming the Holy Ghost and all this other stuff. But no, it's the day-to-day grind. Your life pretty much is whatever you do consistently. That's what your life is. Your life is whatever you do consistently. So if you want to understand your life, ask yourself, what am I doing consistently? If I'm investing consistently and I do that for a while, I'm going to have a wealthy life. A lot of you consistently come to come to financial class every morning. I think that's pretty cool. You're gonna have a damn good life when it comes to the money. You probably know at least 50 or 100 things that 99% of the American population does not know, because I don't dumb the class down just because you're black or no, I can't help it. I'm a professor. I'm going to talk about whatever comes to my mind, and sometimes the ideas that come to my mind might be complex. But luckily, though, I enjoy just talking about it in a conversational way. So hopefully, it doesn't feel so intimidating. And I like analogies because I think analogies connect us from the things that we don't understand to the things that we do. And that's why I like to connect it to things like sex or football or whatever, right? Because we understand sex and football, but we may not understand the economics. But after you see the connection, then you're like, oh, get it now. No, I know what that is. But I can tell you, these are not primitive ideas. Many of the ideas that we discuss in this space come right out of academic literature, cutting edge financial theories that drive the freaking planet, that drive this whole system that intimidates so many people, this whole system that dominates and it can exploit and extort and build and grow and does these massively powerful things, wonderful and terrible at the same time. I can chop it up and break it down like it's a piece of sushi. And then we just eat one little piece after another. So, because I want you to eat it up. I want you to win. I don't want you to be intimidated by none of this stuff. So the 5-year pledge is part of that. Right. That's basically saying, yeah, if you do this for 5 years, oh, you're going to be on your way. And then you just continue that. You shift the traditions, you shift the culture, you shift the norms. And then in less than a generation, everyone's looking at you and they're like, oh, those are a bunch of rich people. They don't know what it's like to struggle. You ain't never been in the struggle. The struggle is not it's not the things that are outside of you. The struggle is not the condition that you're in. That's part of it, but that's not the whole struggle. The real struggle to me is the habits that perpetuate the condition. right? So the struggle is not, if I'm a black man, I'm in this terrible position where I ain't got no money in my bank account and my life is a mess and everything is bad happening to me. That is part of the struggle. The real struggle might be how I approach the struggle. That's the struggle. So if I fix that struggle, the internal struggle of how I even go about solving some of these problems and how I go about making short-term and long-term planning, how I go about making minute by minute decisions in my life. If I overcome that struggle, then all the other struggles are going to disappear. Because what I don't understand is that my condition does not define my life. My condition is a symptom of who I am and how I go about approaching things. Your life is a symptom of you. It's a symptom of you. And they say that they say what they said in that Dallas Cowboys documentary, it was great. The guy said, he said, victory has 1,000 fathers, but failure is an orphan. Right? Or and another one I heard where they said everybody is self-made, but only successful people are willing to admit it. Everybody's self-made, but only successful people are willing to admit it. Unsuccessful people won't say they're self-made. They'll say, well, I was made by this person. I'm a product of this environment and da-da-da, right? But successful people are like, look at me and look at what I did and look at what I overcame and buy my book because I'm telling you how I did it, right? And but at the end of the day, neither is really true, right? You're not completely self-made, right? You come from a community. You come from an environment. You had people around you that gave you some type of love and support. Even if it was few and far between, you had people that you should give credit to, and that's really important. But at the same time, you're the engine behind all that. You're the one who's making those day-to-day, minute-to-minute decisions in your own life. And nobody else can fix that, right? Like people can give you all the advice in the world, but if you don't fix that internal machine that's driving every decision you make, then nothing is ever going to work. So let me finish up on a couple of points. So a couple more things you can do if you deal with loved ones that want to, sort of drain you financially and don't actually want to help is you can also just set conditions. So if I give you money, I need you to do something for me. In fact, I tell my kids, I tell them I don't do charity, I make investments. So when you ask me for money, tell me what I'm investing in. Tell me where we're going to get an ROI, not money wise, but just something that's good that's going to come out of what I'm doing with this money. Also, another point that's here is accepting autonomy, right? So you can plant as many seeds as you want, but those seeds will not grow until the person wants them to grow, right? So even especially with kids are the hardest, right? Kids are like what they call those sleeper cells where they have the spies where they plant the information, the chip in their brain, and it doesn't activate till 10 years later. Kids are kind of like that. You have to plant the chip in their brain and just accept the fact that it may not activate until they're like 45 years old, and you're like 80 by now, and you're like mad that they didn't get it 20 years ago. But that's just how it works, right? At the end of the day, I have found that my ability to control anything other than my own actions is somewhat limited. Because I've got certain amounts of influence, I can have some say in how certain things happen, but it's a very regular thing that I want one thing to happen and it doesn't happen that way. And you have to accept that, right? And you just do your best and you try to help and try to support. And even when I'm teaching you guys about this stuff, I talk to whoever wants to listen. Those who don't want to listen, I don't try to make you listen. I'm not trying to convince you to listen. And it's because I do believe in your own decision or your own ability to make that decision. That's why I always say I'm not a black leader, but I know that I have power, and power in itself becomes a form of leadership for sure. And I respect that, and I try to use it as responsibly as I can. But at the end of the day, most of the influence that I want to have is through action. It's through supporting you and being whatever it is you want to be. Right? I can't tell you what you should want to be. I can only say, well, what do you want to be? And can I help? And if I can help, then I'm going to help you. And so I really think with kids and people in your life, it's the same way. And I also think Black leadership has to be decentralized. I think the way they've done it, and they put some Negro in front of us and they say, oh, this is your Black leader. I just laugh. I'm a huge cynic over stuff like that, because the person will be really charismatic and we'll get super excited about the person, but I'll be like, well, what are they really actually doing? Like, what does this have to do with the price of tea in China? I saw a guy who in Detroit, they have this group called New Era Detroit, and I saw what they were doing in the communities in Detroit, and I reached out to the guy who runs the group. I don't have his name in my head, but I sent a little donation. It wasn't a ton of money, but it was a little bit just to show support. Anything I see that I like, I was cash app a little bit and just say, hey, good job. And one thing that he said that was really interesting to me was he said that they will always talk about helping, that like organizations will get all this money to help the Black community or to help people in the hood, but they never go to the community. They don't go to the hood and ask people like, what do you really need? What do you really want? And that's a common problem. And that's because there are all these economies and ecosystems that get built around these ideas that don't actually lead to anything productive. It's just it just creates activity, right? Like, so let me give you an example. Like the economy is sinking right now. In case you don't know, a lot of people expect a recession to happen soon, but the Federal Reserve is also now expected to reduce interest rates in response to that, which could actually move your stocks up. It looks like a lot of the stocks that I have moved up a little bit today. I got to double check and see what's happening. And here's the thing: the only industry that didn't lose jobs was actually like healthcare. And the analyst I was listening to was like, thank God for the healthcare industry. That's the only place where they didn't lose jobs. And I thought about the fact that one, obviously it's because the population's getting older, but then two, the population's also very sick. And Big Pharma has built a whole massive economic engine around keeping us medicated. That's why they tend to overprescribe all kinds of stuff. Psychiatric medication, it's been proven. They overprescribe it. They want everybody on a pill. And so you can create activity around anything. Anything you want, and you can make it into an economy. That's why you got a whole prison economy. Oh, we got these inmates, all this free labor. Let's put them to work and pay them a penny an hour, and we'll keep the rest of the money. And so where you build these economies is really important, because sometimes you can build them in a way that is economically beneficial to a select group of people, but is horribly harmful to the people you're claiming to help. Charity is one of those areas. There are lots of there are all these tons of charitable organizations that get to use someone else's pain as a product. They get to market their pain as a product. Anybody remember? Give me a yes if you're old enough to remember back in the day. It was real big in the 80s where they would have the starving African kids on TV at 3 o'clock in the morning. And the poor kids I never understood how they were thin and they'd have the big bloated stomach. I mean, I know there's a physiological reason for that, but it didn't make sense. I was like, well, how's their stomach so big? But I was saying this in the mind of a 12-year-old. I didn't get it. And they, and it would look so sad, and you'd be like, damn, I want, for just $1 a day, you can feed little blah 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 from such and such a country, right? And the thing about it is that became an industry. Like, it wasn't really so much just about helping the people. It's really about sort of having this activity around this product. The product is the image in the video, the starving African kid. It leads to the emotional manipulation required to get you to part ways with your money, because money is very psychological, sales is very emotional. And then the organization gets the money, and of course they pay the directors and everybody else first, right? So they're making millions of dollars in salaries. And then when it comes time to actually help the kid, they don't really do things that generate long-term support for that community. And they don't even talk to the people in the community really in terms of finding out what they really, really want. They'll just take the rest of the money. They might go to a partner business and go purchase, a bunch of shoes or purchase a bunch of food or whatever. And so this company makes a bunch of money making the food. They charge whatever they want, and they end up dumping this free stuff onto the population, which unfortunately harms that local community, because now that country can't sustain itself. They never learn the skills required to build an actual industry. This has happened in so many African countries. There was a whole documentary about it called Poverty Inc., where they literally built a whole industry around helping people, but they weren't helping anybody. If you looked at a country, to me, the proof that you're helping them would mean that, okay, they were in dire poverty in, say, 2010. Now they're doing really well in 2020. They've got industry and self-sustainability and all that. No, it's like they were poor in 2010. They're even poorer in 2020. What the hell did you actually do? Who did you help? Like, right, really, if you're in the same condition after I help you that you were before I helped you, then you're going to say I helped you. I didn't, I mean, I might have tried to help you if I really care about you. But unfortunately, there's just all this false activity around claiming to help. And the Black community is also hit by that. Right? You have so many organizations and nonprofits that make millions of dollars claiming to help the Black community. But you go to the communities, the per capita income's not up. The education levels haven't increased. There's still kids getting shot up in the street. So it's like, well, who did you actually help? And how did you actually go about helping them? Who actually scrutinized that process? You know, like, so as a person who is, I consider myself a Chicago guy, even though I was born in Louisville, but I've been in Chicago and surrounding areas since about 2013. And I love Chicago. I don't think that there are any organizations that are really truly helping Chicago. And the ones that are not the ones that get funded. The ones that actually get results don't get the funding because they're not fitting into the economy. The economy that's been built around the impression that you're helping. So a lot of times when they say economic activity, it does mean that there's activity and it does lead to economics, but it does not mean it's productive economic activity. You understand? Like, because you can build an economy around anything. All you got to do is get people doing a whole bunch of stuff and paying each other to do it, right? It doesn't. And if there's no accountability in terms of whether or not that activity is actually making a difference and moving the needle in that area, then it just becomes this big bloated economy that's built around a whole bunch of nothing. So I would encourage you to think about that also in your own life. Think about the areas where you're putting out effort and think about the areas that are getting results. If you're putting out effort and not getting results, then that means that you're not efficiently thinking about what you're putting effort and energy into. That's what leads me to have these weird conversations with Black people where they don't understand why there are certain things I just don't participate in because I say, yeah, you know, that's everybody else is doing that, but I don't want to do it because it's all it's going to do is get us all riled up and get our blood pressure up. Ain't nothing going to come of it. If I'm going to raise my blood pressure and stress myself out, I need to know that what I'm getting stressed out over is actually going to increase the odds that we get a real result that actually means something. So I'm willing to be stressed out to talk to you guys about finances every morning because you've made a promise that you're going to implement as much of this as you can, right? The fact that you've proven, and because we've been talking for years about action, words, and sitting here listening to me ain't going to do a damn thing for your life. I want you to listen until it's time to make a move. And I want you to make some type of tiny move consistently. And when we talk, I don't want you to just tell me how much you like me or like what I say or agree with me. I'd like for you to tell me what you're actually doing. And most of you actually do that. That's what let me know, okay, this is actually working. Let's do more of this. Let's do this every day. Right? Do you understand? So action, you must have action. If you have action, then you will get a victory of some sort. It may not be everything you want. It probably won't happen as fast as you expect it to. It's gonna have bumps in the road. You are going to have people get in your way. You are going to have things that are going to try to undermine things. You build a Black Wall Street. Yeah, white folks might come down and try to burn it down. That's all right. That's life. That means you're winning. That means you're succeeding. Really, like if you're in a football game, the way you know that you have a good team is when they're playing defense on you, when they're trying to stop you. If they're not trying to stop you, then they don't consider you to be a threat. So really, you're gonna have bad things happen. You build a Black Wall Street, and I'm in Tulsa right now, so I'm thinking about Black Wall Street. When you build a Black Wall Street, they're gonna come try to burn it down. You're gonna get a stack of haters that you never had. You're gonna have a set of problems that you didn't even know existed. But that's good. That's good. That pressure typically comes with progress. So meet the pressure. Look it dead in the eye. Have faith that you will overcome this. Look at it as a growth opportunity. And commit yourself to winning. You will achieve this generational wealth. A lot of people are doing it. White folks are doing it. If everybody else can do it, then we can do it too. Do we agree? Give me a yes in the chat. so we can go home and be done for the day. It was great talking to you guys. I'm gonna get out of here. Just a reminder, my book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. If you want to buy cheap copies and give them away or sell them, you can go to drboycebooks.com. And also Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Powernomics, is at powernomics.com. He's a great man. He's like a father to me. I love this man. Without him, there is no me. So I don't take credit for anything. And if you want to give me credit, you can, but I'm not out here trying to take it. And Dr. Anderson is a man who's very special to our community. And I'm very happy that so many of you respect him as much as I do. And it's very important that we give respect to those who came before us. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm out of here, guys. Somebody keeps saying franchise the Black Business School. I maybe that's possible. Let me look into it. But anyway, if you want to get involved with the 5-year pledge, just text the word pledge to the number 87948. So just text pledge to 87948, and I will send you information. I will think about that franchise idea. Maybe that's something we can put together. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.